Hey, friends, it's that time of year again. We're smack in the middle of Telecommunicators Week. This year, as a bonus episode, Brittany and I answer some questions sent in by listeners and reminisce about the good, the bad, and the funny from our years behind the headset. But first, a special thank you to all those out there manning the radios, taking the phone calls, and working the long, stressful days. We see you, they hear you, and we all appreciate you.
Hi, everybody. Happy Dispatcher Week.
Happy Dispatcher Week, everyone.
We,
all our fellow dispatchers out there.
Forgot it was Dispatcher Week until, last week?
Last week.
We're really on top of it this year, guys.
We really don't dispatch as much anymore, so, kind of not on my radar anymore, that's for sure.
Really? That's weird. How long has it been since you quit dispatching?
2 years.
Really? It's
Yeah,
really been that
just
long?
about, right around.
Holy cow. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
And I was telling you before we started recording that I dispatched a whole one shift, I think, last month because of my honeymoon and everything. So, and I dispatched today. That's about all I've done in the dispatching world lately.
I will be honest, I have been tempted to go back and pick up that contracted position.
You should.
And work 8 hours a month.
You could. It's extra money. That's how I'm taking my kids to Disneyland this year.
It's right. It's that fun money.
Yeah.
Doing it for fun money. Yeah.
Just use it for Disneyland or
probably tattoos.
That too.
Yeah. I just, if I go back in there, before I wasn't really a dispatch princess, right? I was a supervisor, nose to the grindstone, did as much as I could day in, day out. If I go back in there, I'm going to be a princess. I'll tell you, I'll dispatch all day long. I don't want to answer a single phone call.
You're like, I'm only here to work a radio. I'm not even going to log in to that stuff.
If it's an officer on the phone, tell him to use the radio. I don't have phone access.
And
how do you think that'd go over?
I only want to dispatch for this channel, so.
I'm only working county. Okay, go bye.
Exactly. I don't know how well that would go over right now, considering there's... Actually, it might work for you, because literally there's no one to work any radio in that room, so they'd be like, sure, whatever radio you want. Go ahead. What do you miss about dispatch, Jess? She's all nothing.
Money? No, I'm just kidding. I do honestly miss working the radio. And that's one of the reasons that I've even considered going back is because the logical part of my brain, with this contracted part-time position available, the logical part of my brain is you're sitting on 9 years of experience that makes you very, very good at this thing and you're no longer using any of it. Mm-hmm. So it's a wasted skill.
Mm-hmm. And it's hard to find good dispatchers that will keep them safe too. And you can do that. And
not to toot my own horn or anything, but I was fairly confident in my ability to work a radio. Mm-hmm. And I liked busy days. The traffic stops, the constant, they're going from this to this to this, you're dispatching out calls, things are rolling smoothly and going busy. I liked those moments. I know some dispatchers I used to work with, hated it when they would be like, 1070 traffic stop, here's traffic.
That's me. I worked 4 hours today, and that's what they did, and I was like, F this, I want to go home.
I'm such the opposite. I'm like, yeah, let's go, another traffic stop.
See, I'm like, toner after toner, cool, let's do it. But when they're like, traffic stop, they're having a competition, I'm like, sir.
I am the same way with those calls too, toners. I remember I would prefer, I'll dispatchers will get this. Other people that aren't dispatchers will understand, but I prefer toners, and that sounds bad because it's I want bad things to be happening because toners are your ones that you get people to as quick as possible. But also, I don't have to worry about picking a unit to go to a toner. I hit the button, I tell them what's going on, and they go. I don't have to be like, can you please take this call?
Yeah, and also you know what to expect, kind of, because usually when toners are coming in, you're getting information. And on traffic stops, sometimes you don't know what to expect,
That's true.
I don't know. That's how I feel.
I did miss, especially when you work with people, I feel like since I worked for the same agency and a lot of the same patrol units for so long, that even if it was during the day and admin was in the office listening to the radio, we could still kind of joke around, and it wasn't always super tense. And there was one time, one of the patrol units, they were driving down a road that cuts through some pretty dense forest, and it was at night, and a deer came out and hit them. Like in Gilmore Girls, she didn't hit the deer hit them. So it hit the side of his patrol vehicle, and so he like called it out. We make sure he's okay. He's like, I'm gonna be, ATLing for the deer. I'm gonna be looking for the deer. And I went over the radio and was like, a copy hit and run by deer. And like just being able to like joke around and stuff like that, Yeah. I miss that. I miss busy dispatching. Sitting there and like waiting for something, that can get a bit slow. That's what I like. I like the fast pace of it. And I do miss that.
I feel like that was hard to find sometimes on night shift.
Yeah, definitely depending on the nights. If you're, there's that like weekend spot, right? Where if you work Friday, Saturday, you're going out times. So like 9 to 3 are normally pretty busy because you've got people out and about and drinking and intoxicated and all that. So you've got your like bar traffic. But the hardest times for me, I loved working graveyards, but the toughest times is 4 a.m. to 6 a.m.
I hate
those
graveyards.
Rough 2 hours.
I kind of missed the hours, though, because it was like 6 to 6, right? Mm-hmm. And the shift I'm on now at the hospital is 7 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. So it's like another hour and a half. And I'm like, I want to go back to 6 to 6 so I can be in bed by 7.
Yeah. It always depends on who you're working with too, right? Like that's always a big factor because when you're working with friends and it's 4 a.m. to 6 a.m., that just becomes therapy time because literally nothing 100%. Else is happening.
Especially when it's only you and 2 other people that you actually really love in the room.
Yeah, very much so.
Shout out to Caitlin. That was our best shift ever. Yeah. I feel like we had so much fun.
Other gals that I worked with during that time, it was our sing-along time. So we would put on like Hamilton, and literally there's nobody else in the building. There's maybe 1 or 2 officers on the other side of the building in the report writing room, but it's just us. So we would sing like Hamilton at the top of our lungs, and the 4 to 6 a.m. is some kooky dukes time, man. Watch out.
It is. It's when everything is funny too. So
yes.
I know we posted on our socials. And maybe if we had done it sooner, like I said, we're a little behind this year, you guys, okay? We might have gotten more, but I wanted to, do the ones that we did get because I really appreciate everybody who responded. And thank you for the support and the love. So I got this one email and I'm going to read it and then we can answer her questions. So it says, "Hi gals, my question was your opinion on if dispatchers should know the officers, deputies, firefighters they work with. Growing up, my dad was a dispatcher, and we had a lot of officer-deputy friends. Then when I became a dispatcher, I also valued that professional relationship. I thought it was essential. However, I recently learned that a lot of bigger city dispatchers do not know their officers at all. They're even discouraged from getting to know them. It's strictly business. I see pros and cons to both sides. Just wanted to hear your thoughts. Another question. I'm moving and starting at a new center. Any advice for lateral transfers? Thank you so much. Keep up the awesome work. Dispatcher Dean," with a smiley face.
Thank you, Dispatcher Dean.
Thank you for listening. I'm going to miss you.
I guess I'll jump in about the getting to know your patrol. So it's hard to come in it from both sides, from both perspectives. The center I worked at was smaller, and so I did know the people I was dispatching for, the people out on my units out on the road. I knew them more so county than when I switched over to work for city. Just because I had worked for county for so long. That's another thing, too, is when I started and I went through my training, I trained on county. Mm-hmm. So the guys that had been there the longest were with me through my training. There was a couple that I went through training with. Like, they were training out on the road while I was training in dispatch, which that combination is always gold. Because the patrol in training has no idea what they're doing and you have no idea what you're doing. So both of your trainers are trying to talk. Anyway. But I really valued those relationships. And I think it like helps remind you why we do what we do, right? Like part of our job is to make sure that those patrol officers are safe. And that means something more when you know who they are and you know them and you're friends with them. I will say not everybody you work with is quality people. And so maybe I sometimes didn't want to know them, but I did. So
I think that goes for every job, though. So
that's true. That's true. Just, when they have a certain amount of power and responsibility, makes it a little rough.
I agree.
But I also understand the larger agencies not being able to have that. I don't quite understand the discouraging it part of it. Having never been in a situation like that, I don't know what they perceive the benefits to be. But I can understand, like, those huge centers where we had beats, right? That our areas were broken up to. We technically had beats, but you dispatched for the entire area.
Yeah.
So you weren't dispatching, like, the city's not as so large that you're dispatching for a single beat and somebody else is dispatching for a different beat, or regardless, we're dispatching for the entire city. We're dispatching for the entire county. So if you have a sheer amount of people, like, I kind of understand, like, you're just not going to be able to know all those people. You're just not. Like, sometimes dispatch centers aren't even where patrol officers aren't even at the stations, right? They're different places. Yeah. So I can see that. I think for me, I think it was beneficial knowing them and being able to talk to them. And again, that kind of goes back to one of my favorite parts, right? Like, if I know the guy's out on the road, I'm comfortable appropriately joking over the radio with them.
Yeah, professionally.
I know that I can say that it was a hit and run with a deer and nobody's going to get upset about it,
Yeah.
So, and I think there also comes a certain amount of, like, work trust. So they know when they hear your voice, they know that, like, if they're used to working with you and they hear your voice and they know that you're on the radio, they know that, like, oh, well, there's certain things that I don't have to worry about because I know Jess has it. If you work with them long enough, they also get to know your tone. So, like, I was very good with not letting my frustration show over the radio. I was able to, like, keep my voice pretty regulated. But in the instances where that slipped through, I had been told that, like, well, when you can hear that Jess is upset, you've gone too far.
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, like, I am telling you what to do all day, so can we please just get along and can you stop asking? Like, just stop. I know what I'm doing. You do your job and I'll do my job.
Yeah.
And I think that also helps with, in the same center, even though we were close to patrol, there is sometimes this overlying us versus them, because some cops don't like to be told what to do all day. Yeah. And they don't like you bugging them, and they just don't like it. And so there's this kind of mentality where, oh, dispatch is picking on me, or, that us versus them, patrol versus dispatch, when you're very much on the same side. Yeah. You're all working towards the same end goal. So I think being able to get to know them and to build that work relationship helps bridge that barrier. So, like, when I first started, I don't remember the officer's name, but there was one officer that just did not like dispatch, and he had been quoted as saying that they were soulless voices. And getting to know them just proves that they're not soulless voices. They're people on the other side of that radio. And, like, maybe don't snap at that person. Like, maybe, like, they're just doing their job too. So I think that helps. I don't know. And again, I don't know if that's an issue for larger agencies. I can imagine people are people, so it's probably an issue. And they have less of the ability to bridge that because they don't know their dispatchers. That was a very long-winded answer to that single question.
No, I think it was a good answer. So I can kind of speak about being in a smaller center and then also being in a larger center, or being dispatching for an area where you're nowhere near your officers that you're dispatching for. Because so I went from dispatching for medical centers, which were very small, and I knew almost everyone. I had seen everyone, met kind of everyone who I was dispatching for. Not to say that I knew them well. I just knew their face, right?
Knew them. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, the first dispatch company that I ever worked for, my best friend at the time, her husband helped me get the job there. So I knew him, and I actually lived with him at the time. So, like, of course, I could joke around with him and stuff. And then through him, I got to know some of the other people. But then when I moved to dispatch for law enforcement, the first agency that I dispatched for, right, we dispatched for more than half of the state. So I was only seeing the troopers who came in who worked the same area that I was. And the center I first worked for was very different than the center I work for now. We had 5 districts that we dispatched for, and within each district there was a certain amount of beats. And you're saying like we tell people where to go or we pick people. I would just be like, is there a unit to go to this? Is there a unit to go to that? Or like I wasn't always telling them where to go, you know, or picking somebody. So that was new for me when I moved to this center. But like the officers that I did know that did come into the center, I did get to know pretty well. And I didn't hang out with most of them outside of work. I mean, there was a couple of them that maybe I did, you know, because I was friends with their wives, or like I did date somebody at my previous agency and I was like, oh, I'm never going to date an officer again. Look how that turned out. Anyway, but other than that, like I would go to like wet labs with them, but I still kept it professional, you know what I mean? But it was still good to know them.
Yeah, right. Like you can build that relationship without being personal with them.
Yeah.
Without hanging out with them on the weekends. Like I think there was like a very small handful that actually like when they would have 4th of July parties or whatever at their house that I would go over and do that.
Yeah.
It's very small. Select.
And I think like it's okay to make friends. I mean, obviously I think it's okay to make friends with people at work and do things outside of work together. That's how I got Jessica's one of my best friends, and that's how I got my husband. But
also therapy talks from 4 to 6. That'll really bring you closer to people.
This is true. But I think just knowing them, like knowing that they have family, like knowing that they have a life outside of dispatch was kind of like, I don't know, it just made them more of a person than just a voice, right? So then
absolutely.
I would, like there was a couple of troopers who I still like will always be thankful for, and we don't talk really now. Like I'm friends with a couple of them on Facebook, so I can see what their lives are like and they can see what mine is like, but we don't talk like we used to, because they would come in and they'd be like, oh, how's your life and stuff, but they pushed me. I would do homework because in dispatch sometimes you have downtime, right? So I would be doing homework and they would always come in and they'd be like, you better get out of here, Brittany, you better get that degree. And I will forever be thankful. Like we were work friends, but their encouragement still really inspired me to keep going through nursing school. So
that's awesome.
You know, and there are a couple of guys from different districts that I've never met in real life, but like you said, they get to know your voice and they get to know you and your quality of work, and they trust you, and they still are like, oh, I miss when you dispatched for us and stuff like that. So I think it's good, in my opinion, to get to know who you're working with. That's my opinion. I know there are other opinions because of inappropriate workplace stuff and whatever, and some people give it a bad name on both sides, right? Not just dispatch, but the patrol side. And I think that's when it's discouraged.
Yeah, which is a shame that the few ruin it for the many, right? Mm-hmm. I have many a friendship in my life, and none of it is anything beyond platonic.
Well, also, too, it's like, I'm sorry, but it's none of your business what I do outside of work. Like, keep it professional. If you're keeping it professional at work and whatever, if you see someone, obviously, I think this, right? But if you're seeing someone who you work with, as long as you're keeping it professional at work, why does it matter? Why are you discouraging that? I'm married to a deputy. Because I'm married to a deputy, I hang out with a lot of deputies outside of work. Not like frequently, but whenever, like you said, they have July 4th party, or there's a couple of deputies whose wives I'm really close with now. And I don't think that's a bad thing, you know? No. I guess the only reason I could see why it's discouraged is because the agency I worked for before, there was some inappropriate relationships happening between coworkers who were married, and it was this big, huge deal, and it caused a lot of drama, and it wasn't professional, for one.
Yeah, and I can promise that was not just an issue at the department, that one department you worked for.
Well, we've done stories about that being an issue, so
that's true.
I'm just saying, but I know that's like when it's discouraged, but it's also kind of like, it's nobody's business what you do outside of work. Just keep it outside of work.
Keep it outside of work. Right.
Yeah. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
I think that's hard for some people. Not everybody,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that's hard for some people.
Well, when Ryan and I first started dating, I know there was a girl who doesn't work for the center we work for anymore. And she kind of made it public that we were dating before we had even told anybody, because somebody had seen us out together and it made its way through
very quickly.
Yeah. Before we even knew, like, if we wanted to really, like, be together, like, we were just getting to know each other. That's another thing, like, it's also not your business what other people do outside of work.
Well, it's also frustrating for me, and this is kind of dovetailing off this, like, it's not immediately related, but it is also frustrating that there is that perception that people can't have platonic friendships.
Yeah.
That automatically means because you were out to lunch, and granted that wasn't the situation, but say that you were out to lunch with him, completely platonic, but people saw you together and immediately assumed it was because you were dating. It's like, you can have platonic friendships. Like, calm down.
Like, what if they had seen us the first time we went hiking together when we really were just friends? Like, we didn't know each other at all aside from, like, our 12-hour ride along, right?
Yeah.
And then they had went and told everybody, like...
Right. So to tag on to that, mind your own business.
Yeah, exactly. Mind your own business. It's not your work's business what you do outside of work. I mean, as long as it's legal and everything, right?
And professional.
Yeah.
Keep it professional.
But it's also not your
home.
business what your coworkers do outside of work, and it's not your business to spread around if you see or hear something.
Yeah. Just don't gossip.
Yeah, and like, who has time for that? It's just stressful. Anyway, and then to answer her second question.
Oh, yeah. There's another question.
Good luck at your new agency. I hope you love it.
Yeah, congratulations. Good luck.
We will miss you. But I think, speaking from my experience, when I moved from the agency I was before, when they closed the center, to the agency where we met, I think the hardest part for me was training, because I already had these skills that I knew how to do, right? And then to hear, like, some people thought that I wasn't doing it right was hard for me. So when you go into a new center, try to just keep an open mind would be my advice, and try to keep those things that you know are good foundation for dispatching, and, like, obviously learn all of the things that you have to do at your new job, like within policy and stuff, but, like, also keep the good foundation that you've already formed, right? Because you've already formed some good skills in dispatching. You already know a little bit about what you're doing. But, for example, when a certain trainer was training me, and she's kind of known to be a little harsh, I already knew what I was doing. And so I would answer the phones quickly, because when phones were ringing, it was like driving me insane. And I could do it, but she couldn't listen because she had a radio and she was trying to listen to me on the radio, and that frustrated her. And then I got frustrated and it caused a lot of arguments. So then I had to remind myself that I was new at this job and I still had to prove myself. And I think she had to, like, know, oh, Brittany can do stuff. And eventually she got to where she knew that, but it was kind of a little bit hard. So don't make it harder on yourself than you have to be, I guess I would say, and just be open to learning new things, but keep in the back of your mind for when you're on your own, the things that you liked about where you came from, right? Because the agency I worked at before, I've said this before, we were trained to get the info and the call in and within a minute. Like, we had a minute to get everything. And we only got what was super important. Like, we didn't ask 1,000,001 questions, right? So when people call, I was like,
what and where?
I'd be like, yeah, exactly. I'd be like, what, where, when, description.
Okay, goodbye.
Okay, thanks, bye. Like, that's how it was. So I had to remind myself, oh, this is different than where I came from. I need to slow down a bit. Like, you know, little things like that, I guess. Mm-hmm. I will say it did help me form a really good foundation, because I hear the complaints from the deputy side because I hang out with them. And then I hear the complaints from dispatch, and I don't, because of the foundation I formed at DPS and the way I was trained, I had the mindset of whatever they need me to do, I do. Like, I don't complain if they're like, can you call this person? Can you do that? Like, you know what I mean? Because that's just how I was trained. Whereas some people hate it. And I'm like, well, I'm just basically your secretary. Is kind of how I thought about it in my mind, because that's how I was trained, right?
You can't see me, but I shivered when she said that.
For other
because
people,
we would
it's
always
not the
say,
same.
I am a dispatcher. I am not your secretary.
But I also, like, maybe once in my career have said, stand by, like, when something important is going on, you know what I mean? Like, because I have such a good ear where I can listen to the phone and the radio because of the way I was trained, I don't have to tell them to stand by all that often. Like, and other people maybe don't have that skill yet. So I don't know. I just feel like hang on to the good things that you have, but also be open to learning new things.
Yeah, I think I was kind of thinking about this beforehand too, and I think actually my advice is similar to yours. I've never been a lateral transfer. I had never worked for law enforcement a day in my life when I applied and got the job as a dispatcher for the center I worked at. But I became a trainer and I became a supervisor, and sometimes those were laterals that I was, bringing into the center and helping with that. And related to your note, Brittany, is you do have these skills that you already know and that you can essentially do the job. Mm-hmm. But remember that every center is different, mm-hmm. and you need to be accepting of what they're teaching you.
Yeah.
Like you said, right? You have the building blocks, you have the basics. They may do something completely different. Don't fight them on that. Just go in and learn, and then meld what you know that works. And if they say, no, don't do that, then take that, right? Like if that center doesn't want you to do something that your old center did, then accept that, because you work for your new center now. Yeah. You don't work for your old center anymore. So I think recognizing that you do have this experience, but you are new. You are new hire, even though you're a lateral. That's the first thing that came to my mind, because we definitely dealt with people that stuck their heels in and was like, well, I'm not doing it that way, or that's not how we used to do it, or whatever. I'm like, cool, you don't work for your old job anymore.
Yeah.
You work here for us now, and we're going to do it this way.
This is a new center. This is how we do things here. Roll with it.
Yeah. And, maybe on down the line, something that you do better does work for them, and you can integrate it with everybody, but you're new, so just learn first. Yeah,
you kind of have to prove yourself a little bit.
I've never liked that, but
really?
It's true. Yeah.
Oh, you've never just liked saying that?
I hate it because I was treated like trash by certain people until I worked my first officer involved shooting and handled it appropriately. And then it was like, oh, we can not even be nice. We can be professional to her because she's proved that she can do the job. No, I'm a human. You should be professional to me regardless.
Okay. Yeah, that's fucked up. But I'm saying, like, before you bring in these new ideas, you kind of have to prove, like, you can do the job to them.
You can do what they're asking you to do.
Not for them to treat you nicely. That's just common sense. Like, just be a nice fucking person. But no matter what job you do, but especially in stressful ones, like...
I literally had a coworker who didn't talk to me. Would not talk to me because I was new. And then I worked my first officer involved shooting, and lo and behold, they started talking to me. I brought it up to my friend. I was talking to him about it, and he was like, oh, well, she's the type of one that you have to, like, prove yourself to. And I'm like, that's fucking bullshit. I don't have to prove that I'm a human for you to speak nicely to me.
Yeah, no.
Any other advice? If they don't have you do it, could make your own geography treks. That's what we would call just kind of driving around and learning the area. Mm-hmm. So if you're unfamiliar with the area, get to know it. On your days off, go drive around.
Yeah, plus it's fun.
We'd always recommend
to explore. I'm trying to think if I have any other advice. I don't think so.
I don't think I have anything either.
Okay.
I think those are the big things. I mean, otherwise you'll do fine. You can learn. You'll already know how to do it. So
and don't get nervous and, just be you. Like Kylie would say, be yourself. Yeah. Yep. So
can I say, this is only slightly related, but it is a relief when you get laterals because they are used to the higher priority calls and stuff like that. Because even from experience, when I was a baby dispatcher in training and the toner comes in, you get a rush of adrenaline and you're like, oh my God, I have to take care of this now. Oh gosh, what do I do? And then there comes a point in your career where that just doesn't happen anymore, at least for me. And I remember I was training a trainee and she wasn't to the point where she was dispatching yet. Like we were talking about things and going over things, and it was either a DV or a fight or something like that. Somebody was like, how our center would work is when you got a priority call, it's small enough, the room is small enough so you would call it out. And so, we were working, I was training her, somebody calls out, hey, I've got a DV. And I was like, okay. And I pull up the screen, I click on it, DV in progress at this address, this is what's going on. My unit's going route, I give them further. And my trainee goes, wow, I can't wait till I'm so chill about that because my anxiety went through the roof. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess that doesn't really happen to me anymore.
Literally today I was working a busy radio and I got a call and it was a fight and I'm like putting it in and I'm like accepting it. I'm like, okay, can you hold on so I can tone this out? I like tone it out and then I'm like, okay, tell me more. Like just sitting there. I hang up. They're running. There's like a foot pursuit. So I had to close the channel and I'm just like, sitting there. Literally, they open the channel. I pick up a 911 call. It's another fight. I'm like, so I put it in. Today? I tone it out. Yeah, I put it in. I tone it out.
Thursday.
I tone it out. And I was like, that's weird. I wasn't like all the way like, oh my God.
You didn't, like peak. Yeah.
I was like, okay. But yeah.
Good luck on your new job, Dispatcher Dean, and thank you for writing in. We appreciate it.
Yep. You're going to be great. You don't even need our advice.
You don't need our advice, but it's sweet that you asked. Oh, yeah, I have a question too. Sorry, I forgot. I can't say that it was entirely serious, but I am going to ask this to Brittany because if you've been listening, you all know the answer. Hey, Brittany, did you ever have the hots for someone you dispatched for?
Nope, never. Not once. To be fair, I didn't dispatch for Ryan until after we had started dating. We were engaged. I was in his center, but I didn't dispatch for them.
Yeah, you worked for the other agency.
Yeah.
I dispatched for him.
Exactly. Did I think he was cute in his little glasses when we went on a ride along? Obviously. I mean, did I think it was adorable when he gave me his card and said like 20 times, if you need anything, email me? Yeah. Was I going to email him? No. I was like, I'm not dating somebody I work with. I'm not dating an officer ever again. I don't want anything to do with that. Let's move on. And we all know where that ended. So
they're married now, in case you didn't know. She married hers. Listen, we've all worked with attractive people. I've dated some officers.
Well, everybody who works with me works with an attractive person, so
it's true. Who are we fooling? Anybody who works with Brittany works with a goddess.
That would be you.
Please. I did not marry any of them, though.
Are you sure?
In fact, I am no longer dating them, and I don't want to date any of them anymore.
And you probably don't think about them ever, really.
No. Until like
I was going to say, until questions like this come up.
And I'm like, ugh, yeah.
I'm going to say something that all dispatchers will know is not true. There's no such thing as a stupid question.
Yeah. Happy Dispatcher Week. We all know that's fake. I'll give a classic one that if you work in centers like we work in, it's a stupid question. Can I get a unit en route to a structure fire? They need help with evacuation. Do we have fire going? Is the fire department going to that structure fire?
Or when you ask for someone to respond to a medical and they're like, do you have medics en route? No.
Or
I was waiting for you to tell me to start medics for someone who's actively bleeding out. Thank you.
Or an injury accident. Boo! Injury accident at this location, these vehicles involved. Can we get fire and medics en route to the injury accident? Thank goodness you told me that, because otherwise I wouldn't have done it.
You know what my favorite was? When I would tone out a vehicle fire, engulfed. What color's the car?
Red.
Sir.
And smoky.
Hopefully when you get there, it's the only fucking car on fire.
I do. I'll tag on at the very end here to bring it back full circle. One of the things I miss is getting snarky and barking at officers in training.
Yeah. Because
I'm never super serious about it. Like, right? Like, if there's a real issue, I'm not going to snap at you over the radio. I'm going to come over and get at your training officer's attention. I'm going to ask your field training officer to give me a phone call.
Yeah.
That's when you know you're in trouble, when I say, can you give dispatch a 21?
So you can be
That's
like,
when you know.
Bro, what the heck is with your trainee? You need to fix
Yes.
this, and this.
Yeah.
Anyway, happy Dispatcher Week.
Happy Dispatcher Week.
Thank you to everybody who actually dispatches. Have a good week.
All of you out there that are working the overtime and doing the hard hours and putting up with it and understand everything that we've complained about, but still show up to work every day. We're proud of you.
Yeah.
That is, you do something, and I'm going to be serious. I'm going to take it down. Be serious here for a second. No smiles. You do something that very few people in the entire population can do, and that's something to be proud of.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
And especially those people who've done it 5, 10, 15, 20 plus years. Like, you guys are